And hello, everybody. Happy Cyber Sunday. As you can see, I'm not in Houston. I'm in Michigan, and it's about 18 degrees out here. And yes, I decided to film a Cyber Sunday in the snow. Kind of what it, I like to make analogies. This is a big thing for me. I got my Starbucks here, by the way, trying to stay warm. And one of the analogies this kind of brought up for me in the snow, as you can see, a lot piled up here, and that's really windy on this side. The snow, it kind of reminded me of the difference in like how Michigan deals with this and how Houston deals with this. If you don't know, I live in Houston most of the time, and we had temperatures just like this earlier this week, actually. So it wasn't that much colder here. It isn't much colder here than it was in Houston, but we didn't have all the snow. We had a little bit of snow, a little bit of ice. And what happened in Houston a lot, especially around my house, was that the traffic and everything kind of stopped. People quit going out, schools closed. And you can't do that here in Michigan because this happens a lot. Um, so things close down in Houston when the weather gets kind of bad, gets icy, that kind of thing. And it doesn't really do that here in Michigan and other places in the north because you can't, because it happens too much. So, and what I just said, happens too much, is kind of a clue. But part of the temptation, or an analogy that is a temptation to use, is that why don't you put more infrastructure in place in Houston to deal with this so you won't have to shut down on those days? And so the analogy to that is, well, places, you could have a cybersecurity program that's not very good in one place, in one company, and then in another company it's pretty robust. And that's just the direct analogy to, that place is going to have a problem. The place who doesn't have a good, robust security program is going to have a problem when they get popped by somebody, and the other one will be just fine, or better off, and be able to recover, those kind of things. So that's a straight up analogy that seems plausible when you first think about it, but actually it's not a very good analogy. And while I know I said I was going to stay away from the whole risk assessment, not stay away from it, but just kind of wrap that up, I think this is appropriate to bring up as an analogy, is that Houston doesn't invest in that infrastructure and all that stuff to recover from ice and those kind of things. It doesn't invest as much because it doesn't happen there very often. It maybe happens once, twice a year at the very most. Yes, back in 2021 we had a really big thing happen, but that's just so very seldom. It just doesn't happen a lot. It's not a very big occurrence. Here in Michigan and other places, happens a lot. You get a lot of snow. You have to invest in those things. All the roads here in Michigan, as we were driving from the airport to out to here, are completely clear. No ice on them whatsoever. I left my house the other day in Houston. There was ice on a bridge, like it was slowing everything down, and people just didn't know how to deal with it. So those are kind of your two different things. Same way with like houses. Here in Michigan, you're not dripping the water during winter storms and stuff like that. I mean, you're covering things up, you're winterizing, but you're not doing all of the things because the houses are built to deal with that. You can see the snow coming down. It's pretty cool. In Houston, you have to open your cabinets and keep everything warm and make sure all your pipes are wrapped and you got dripping. I mean, there's different advice. I'm not trying to get into that, but essentially the analogy is it doesn't happen there very often. The houses aren't built for it. And that's where the risk assessment analogy comes in, is that if you're putting a bunch of money and time and effort into an area, into your organization, where there's not a big chance of something happening in that area, like a website that just doesn't get popular or doesn't have a lot to do with your organization's revenue, it just doesn't have a lot of value to it, and it's not a big risk. You've done a risk calculation there. You know that the likelihood of it getting hit is low. The problems, if it does get hit, are low. Why put the time and effort into it? That's really more an apt analogy in my mind, from a risk assessment and a cybersecurity perspective. when you look at Michigan investing in a lot of infrastructure to clear out their roads so they can keep moving, and Houston not doing that much. That's the analogy you need to take, not that one is doing what it should and the other is not, because Houston just shouldn't they can use that money and resources in other ways and do other things that are better for the Houston community. Anyway, so that's Cyber Sunday. Hope that makes sense. Let me know what you think, and I'm going to get inside because I'm cold. Talk to you next time.